American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I live in Paris, and 2 months ago I got hit by a taxi relatively hard. I fell down in the street. All these people came, they picked me up, they brought me over to a bench. This woman from a restaurant brought me a glass of water. Another woman gave me a handful of coins, and I was like, I don't need your money, it's okay. And she was like, sweetheart, this is your money. It fell out of your pockets when you got hit by the taxi. And I was like, Sonic the Hedgehog vibes, great. The man who hits me goes to call the ambulance, and I said, stop. Do not call the ambulance. That will cost me $3,000 to $5,000 because that's what an ambulance costs in America. And he was like, what are you talking about? An ambulance is €7. I was like, oh my God. Remind me to twist my ankle on the way home from the club, and they'll give me an IV so I won't be hungover the next day? Catch me at the hospital. This is lit.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So shout out to all my American expats who shared a response video to this girl's question. I did too, because I'm currently living in Ireland. But what I noticed in the comment section of all these videos that is hilarious time and time again is the amount of Americans who are pressed. And these are the same Americans who will be like, oh, if you don't like it here, then leave. And we did. It's the fact that they're in the comments trying to discredit the reasons why we've left America. Like, how are you going to tell me, someone who was born and raised in America all my life, that what I experienced there wasn't real? Like, no, America doesn't exploit the working class. No, America doesn't have a policing issue, a race issue. No, America doesn't have a problem with guns and mass shootings. I can't tell if you're mad that we're thriving outside of America or America's being exposed. Either way, America's not great for everybody, and that's a fact.
And currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I first started school and asked them when we have our first training for school shootings, and they asked me, what is that? I walked into a supermarket and I was confused as to why there weren't any guns on the shelves. When I went on a walk with my friends and they wanted to walk over someone's farm because it was a shortcut, and I said I didn't want to go because I was afraid of getting shot, and they looked at me like I was crazy. When I saw police cars driving up and I realized that nobody besides me was scared shitless. When I watch political talk shows and they're actually having a conversation and discussing an actual topic instead of talking over each other and insulting each other. When I noticed that over here nudity and sexual expression was seen as natural and normal while violence is talked down upon, when in the States violence is everywhere and nudity and sexuality are taboo.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America...
So I don't live abroad anymore, but for half of 2018, I lived in Germany, and I have so many stories. The town that I lived in had like a main plaza area, and there was a cafe in that plaza, so a couple of my other American friends and I decided to try it out one day, and there was a construction site nearby. We heard a really loud bang, and, you know, we kind of assumed that someone had fired a gun, and so we, ducked for cover, and then we were looking around frantically, trying to find, a place that we could run to or hide to get out of the situation, and then we realized that no one had shot a gun. No, it was a loud bang from the construction site. That's it. That's all it was. We'd been speaking in English, and we all have really obvious American accents, so all the Germans around us gave us these really sad looks, like, oh, these poor, poor Americans.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize...
I am back for round 2 on this one. So I just moved to Italy with my boyfriend who is Italian. We're watching a movie the other day where somebody is running away and they get shot. And I'm like, you know what? That's their fault. They didn't run in a zigzag. That's the first thing they teach you, to run in a zigzag if somebody's pointing a gun at you. He pauses the movie. And he looks at me and he goes, who taught you that? And I'm like, teachers, adults, parents, they teach you when you're young to run in a zigzag if somebody is pointing a gun at you. The sinking feeling I had when I realized that nobody ever had to teach him that when he was young, because that's not a problem here.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I've lived abroad for a little over a year, and coming back for the holidays, I have really come to realize that the food in this country is garbage. Since leaving the US, I have lost about 40 pounds, and I have not tried to lose weight. I haven't been conscious that I'm losing weight. It just has naturally fallen off of me because food in other countries is not overprocessed. It's not packed with sugar and preservatives and all of the things that are in the food here. And since being back, even for the short amount of time that I've been here, I have found it extremely difficult to maintain my weight, even though I'm not overeating. I'm eating basically the same diet I was eating abroad. It's simply the way the food is processed. So moral of the story, try eating organic as much as possible. This food is killing you.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I started my new job in the Netherlands. This was 3 years ago, and I was going through the company policy the first week. And I got to the section about leave, and they have a holiday leave, like PTO, and then they had sick leave in 2 different areas. And I was reading about sick leave, and I turned to my coworker, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, it talks about like the requirements for sick leave and like doctor notes like after 3 days, but how many sick days do we get a year? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how many are they? It doesn't say. She's like, it's just if you're sick, you're out. I'm like, I don't understand. She's like, it's unlimited. It's just if you're sick, you take a sick day. She was confused. I was shocked. There's a moment I realized we're fucked up in America and how we deal with people being sick with work.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I was studying abroad in Germany, and that winter I broke my foot playing soccer. At first, I didn't go to the hospital because I'm so used to a shitty healthcare system, but then I was reminded that I paid $200 for a full year of full coverage health insurance. Fuck yeah. So I went to the hospital, and the doctor was x-raying my foot. I asked, Wie viele ist das X-ray? Huh? How much is the X-ray? Yeah, I understood you, but, where did you get this idea that we would charge for an X-ray? America? Really? How much do they cost over there? Like $700 to $1,400, depending on what you get? Wow, well, here in Germany, we don't charge for fucking pictures. My God, that is verrückt. My knee feels funny, too.
An American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Okay, so I moved to Sweden. And when I got here, I wasn't feeling too well, so I went to the doctor, and the doctor recommended that I get an EKG, an electrocardiogram. Now, instead of worrying about my health, my first reaction was, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can get one of those, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it. And this sweet little man, this sweet, amazing doctor goes, did you not pay the, like, $20 when you got here? I ended up getting a regular EKG, a 24-hour-long EKG, a blood test, and a freaking checkup for $20. Best part of this entire situation is that I am getting better, and I am getting the medical attention I need without going broke.
And currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Oh, I've got a couple. So I'm from Los Angeles and now I live in Austria. And basically when I first started working here, they were like, you get 25 days vacation, Fridays off early, and if you're sick, don't come into work. And I was just like, I was floored. Because in the US, you only get 10 days vacation and like 5 sick days, and you don't get Fridays off early. You better work your ass until it's 9 p.m. On top of all of that, all my friends here have like 2 masters, 3 PhDs, etc., 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 because education here is actually free. Amazing. What an amazing concept. In addition, I have yet to see a large homeless community out in the open here in Austria because the government actually offers some social support. A lot of social support. In LA, you have villages, streets, blocks full of homeless people because our government doesn't care about us. And here, people like don't measure their worth off the car they drive.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize?
So we live in Ireland, and our oldest is in senior infants, which is the equivalent of the second half of kindergarten. She did kindergarten back in the States. And she came home from school one day, and she said, Mommy, we had a drill today. And I went, active shooter drill? No. Bomb threat? No. Mommy, it was a fire drill. Well, oh, okay. I mean, back home, she had active shooter drills every month in kindergarten. We get these phone calls, and it'd say, oh, in accordance with Florida law, blah, 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 everything's gone back to normal. And I'm just sitting there thinking of my kid hiding in a bathroom, with 30 other kindergartners and her poor teacher trying to keep all these kids quiet. I'm like, that's not normal here. That's something we got used to because that's what America is. It's just one big active shooter drill.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
It's not current, but when I was studying in the UK, one day I really needed to see a doctor. But I didn't know how to access care. I didn't know what my insurance situation was like, so I just went to work. And eventually I was in so much pain that I burst into tears and my boss pulled me aside. And he was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I really need to see a doctor, but I don't know how to access care here. I don't know if I can afford it." And he was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Go down the street to the hospital." And I argued with him. And he was like, "No, just trust me. Just go to the hospital." So I went and I was like clutching my like student ID in my hand, my passport. And I was like trying to remember how much I had in my bank account, like checking. And I got called back to the doctor. He was like, "Yep, this is what's wrong with you. Pick up your prescription on the way out." And I was like, "I'm sorry, do you know how much it's going to be?" And he said, "I don't know, maybe 8 pounds. I was like, "I'm sorry, 8? He was like, "Yeah, I don't think it's ever more than that." The receptionist kept laughing at me because I didn't feel comfortable leaving without paying somebody. And I kept asking if I owed anybody any money.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up? I'll go first. I live in Warsaw, Poland now, but I always stay in touch with what's happening in the US, and I happened to hear about that Las Vegas shooting when someone opened fire on a bunch of concert goers. And it was very tragic news, but that day I also went to the movies, so I was already in a kind of weird mental state. And when I left the movies, I got on the tram again in Warsaw, and I saw this guy kind of being sketchy and acting weird in the last seat. And I kept eyeing him the whole time, and he had his jacket open and he was holding something inside. He was hiding it. And I thought, my first American thought was it's a gun or a knife or some kind of weapon, and I need to move away as soon as possible. So I kept looking at him the whole ride, and then he takes it out, and it was a beer can. He was sipping it and hiding it during the tram ride. That's what happens in Poland. Not guns, not knives. And I started crying and laughing at the same time because that's when I realized, wow, that's messed up. American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I grew up in southern Indiana, and I moved to London, England. So I just moved to England, and I made a lot of new friends. So I go to a party, this was like 3 years ago. And let's say one of my friends he drank too much water. And all my friends were taking care of him, including myself, and all of a sudden one of them goes, "Hey, we gotta call an ambulance." And I was like, "No, dude, do you know how much money that costs? He just drank too much water, he's gonna be fine." And right when I said that, everyone looked at me and said, "Mate, what are you talking about?" And I was like, "Dude, the ambulance is gonna cost $3,000. And that was the moment I realized that England had free healthcare.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So during the first lockdown, we have an elderly neighbor, and we would go and check in on her every once in a while and get her groceries if she needed. And progressively, she started not be able to breathe very well. And we knew it wasn't COVID because she had it before. But at one point it was she couldn't even get to the door without literally not being able to breathe and having to sit down. So my partner decided that we needed to call an ambulance for her and get her to the hospital pronto. And when he told me that he was going to call an ambulance, the first thing that I said was, "Are you sure? Can she afford an ambulance? We could just drive her." And it wasn't until my partner looked at me and that it clicked that, oh, that's not a worry here. And then I went upstairs and cried because it really smacked me in the face that as Americans, we are conditioned to not worry about someone's health first, but to worry about whether or not they can financially afford to see a doctor and get help.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
2008 or 9, 20 years old, Munich, Germany. City passes the vibe check, no doubt, but I didn't have anyone with me. And I'm trying to get cigarettes from a machine, my ID doesn't work. Cop shouts from across the street, he's on his way to me. "Hey, you, sir, is there anything I can help you with?" And immediately no, I'm sorry, don't worry about it, I'm getting out of here anyway. And I keep it moving, and he's like, no, hey, you. And I keep it pushing, "Hey, you? Nah, get the fuck out of here." And the next cop stops me, and I immediately drop everything that's in my hands as I take my hands out of my pockets so I don't get shot. And so he ends up buying me a pack of cigarettes, bringing me to the nearest bar, explaining to me that they go to 4 years of college to do this, get paid $50,000 a year more than our cops, and bought me a drink.